All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Wonderful. Whatever time of day it is that you might be viewing this. Let me tell you, this is the Time to Tell the Truth series. We've been doing this series now for several weeks, and we've got a number of weeks to go because we want to share some powerful information and we want to get the word out. Matter of fact, so much so that if you're watching this on YouTube, what I want you to do is to be able to go there and actually hit subscribe. Hit subscribe on YouTube, right? So we can just spread the word, share this with somebody else that you know, that they might hear this powerful information. And we hope that it will definitely change mindsets, save lives, possibly save lives, because we just know there's so many things that we just don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So there's an old show back in the day called Time to Tell the Truth. Now that tells my age for real because some of y'all don't know nothing about that show, what it was all about. But all these different people would jump up and only one person was telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're sharing. We do the research. I'm Dr. Roz. Most people call me Dr. Roz. My full name is Rosalind Shaw Belt. I am the CEO of Dream to Life Productions and Ministry. I'm a wife, a musician. I've been blessed to do a number of things throughout the course of my life. Insurance agent, matter of fact, right now, heavy being involved in that area on the Medicare side. But I'm mostly important in this period of time, been in ministry for many years, and I am now what I call a ministry of health because a certified wellness coach with the Kana. I have certificates for a conopreneur and a lifestyle consultant. Also, through the Flatbelly Lifestyle 2.0, I am a certified wellness coach, and I'm really excited about that. So let's jump into the topic of today. Do you know what you're eating? This has been so intense that we had to split it up into 3 different parts, and this is part 3. If you missed the other parts, we'll tell you how to get those parts. But it's all about a healthy diet. A healthy diet can help prevent chronic diseases like heart disease, like diabetes, like cancer. If you're listening to this and you're dealing with any of these things, or you have people in your family, then you want to tune in. You want to take notes because literally this information can help improve infant, child, and maternal health and to strengthen your immune system. And then it's about being mindful of what we eat. It's not necessarily about changing everything. People so quickly say what they can't do or what they can't give up or what changes they can't make. But we can all be mindful of what we're eating that can help you feel full with less food, digest better, and make some wiser choices about what you eat in the future. Now, in part 1, we showed you proof of what's in certain foods. See, a lot of times we're eating stuff, we don't even have a clue how they made it, how they created it, and what they put in it to make it taste like it tastes. But in part 1, we covered apple juice and artificial sweeteners and bacon and beer and blue cheese, packaged bread, canned mushrooms, caviar, misspelled that one, right? We talked about chicken nuggets, energy drinks, enhanced chicken and beef, and commercial fruit juices. Then on part 2, we covered chewing gum, hot dogs, commercial ice cream, imitation crab meat, jelly beans, McDonald's, oh my God, non-dairy creamer, packaged meat, peanut butter, Pringles, processed cheese, instant ramen noodles, red products, farmed shrimp, and swordfish. And here's part 3. Let's get going.
Vanilla flavored products. There are few things as satisfying as tucking into a delicious bowl of vanilla ice cream after dinner. But you might be rethinking your ice cream flavor choice when you learn that the vanilla might be coming from beaver butts. Beaver butts. A key ingredient in many vanilla flavored products is castoreum, which originates from beaver castor sacs. These are scent glands between the base of the tail and the pelvis. and beavers produce the castoreum to mark their territory. What I'd like to know is, who was the first person to think it was a good idea to taste that butt goo? Did someone really dip a finger in it and give it a taste test? Doesn't bear thinking about. The worst part is that we might not know we're even eating it, since it's often listed as natural flavoring. Fortunately, not all vanilla-flavored goods use beaver butt goo. High-quality goods tend to use real vanilla extract, which isn't from beaver bums.
Oh my God. If you knew that that was happening, you probably wouldn't even touch it, right? But let's keep going.
Worcestershire sauce. Ah, yes, the old wash your sister sauce. Or, if you can speak the English language perfectly, Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire? Clearly, I can't speak the English language perfectly. It's a favorite, that's for sure. You can use it in stir-fries, marinades, sauces, meat dishes, salads. The list goes on. I love it on burgers. There's nearly nothing it doesn't taste nice with, except for desserts, of course. But the way it's made, at least the Lee & Perrins variety, will surprise you. Or it won't. I don't know you. Lee & Perrins have been making this classic sauce for nearly 2 centuries. Chemists John Wheely Lee and William Henry Perrins started dabbling in the sauce's creation in 1835, and it was an utter failure. It tasted awful, so they left their sauce in their basement, left it alone, and returned to it a few years later. They tasted it again, and surprisingly, it tasted good. Almost like the aging process had done it well. And that was that. The secret to their success was letting the ingredients mature.
And it goes into join the other barrels and that's when the spice, so it soaks up all that vinegar.
Such as molasses, malt vinegar, spirit vinegar, garlic, red onions, anchovies, and tamarind. And even today, they follow a similar process. Their Worcestershire sauce ingredients sit maturing in barrels for several months until they're used in the actual sauce. Whole garlic cloves will sit to pickle in malt vinegar for a year and a half, while whole red onions will pickle for 9 or 10 months. Even the anchovies are aged. They'll sit in 200 kilograms of salt for 2 years to bring out the best flavor.
Oh my goodness. Woo, look at all that salt. Okay, I know, I'm hitting some of you where it hurts, but that's okay. Let's keep going. So I don't want to just talk about just particular foods on this session today, and I'm hopefully trying to finish this session, but I want to question you. How much do you know about the FDA? Well, let's talk about some facts about the FDA. The roots of the FDA started under President Abraham Lincoln, and the precursor to the FDA was established in 1906 by the Pure Food and Drugs Act under the Bureau of Chemistry, which had been created by Abraham Lincoln. Now, its original mission was to stop the sale of falsely advertised or unsafe food and drugs. Now, I want you to swallow that for a second. That's how it was originally created. And why? The 2020 FDA budget, now let's move on up to where we are in our era, was more than $3.4 billion. Out of the more than $3 billion budgeted for the FDA, about $2 billion of that 3.4 is derived from user fees paid by manufacturers, with the remainder by government appropriation. User fees, which were instituted in 1992, what do? Speed up approvals. But some regard them as creating undue influence on the process by companies and politicians. The FDA uses about a third of the budget for drug regulation, while 10% is dedicated to oversight of medical devices and their radiation emissions. Only 10%, guys. Biologics come in at about 7%, and about 20% of the FDA budget goes to food safety, with the remainder spread across regulation of animal medicine, tobacco products, and administrative costs. The FDA has exponentially increased its approval of novel medications over the years. Until the 50s, the FDA usually approved fewer than 4 novel molecular entities per year. The pace accelerated steadily, and in some recent years, there have been as many as 50 or more new drugs approved. Today, there are more than 20,000 FDA-approved drugs currently on the market. Physicians now write about, hold it, 3 billion prescriptions each year. And almost 3/4 of physician visits involve drug therapy. Nearly half of Americans have taken a prescription drug in the past 30 days, and about 85% of Americans over the age of 60 take prescription drugs.
So you thought that there was agencies like the FDA that were always going to protect you from eating bad foods? Well, not so fast. I'm going to uncover a list of ingredients that will destroy your health that are deemed to be completely healthy by the FDA. Hey Wellness Warrior, I'm Dr. Zarowski, and whenever we buy food, it's so important to make sure that we're reading the labels because we're going to find some ingredients in there that are pretty unsavory and damaging to your health. Let's go ahead and dive into the first one, and that's going to be high fructose corn syrup. Now, this is a very inexpensive sweetener that's used in a lot of food and drinks today. Now, high fructose corn syrup is particularly damaging because it has to be converted by the liver to glucose, glycogen, or even fat before it can be used as an energy source for your body. And high fructose corn syrup has been shown to increase triglyceride production, leading to a variety of different illnesses. Anything from obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even an increase in amount of body fat. High fructose corn syrup is also associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is a big problem in today's world. Obesity, linked to high fructose corn syrup usage, also increases the risk of developing several types of cancer. There was a team of scientists from Cornell University, and what they did in some research is they basically fed high fructose corn syrup to mice, and they found that high fructose corn syrup actually promoted the growth of intestinal cancer cells. The thing is that's very interesting about this is that gastrointestinal cancer continues to skyrocket today. They're finding in animals, it increases cancer cells in your gut. Well, I don't know, maybe it's happening to us as well. High fructose corn syrup, in my opinion, should always be avoided, and I don't believe it is a safe, good, healthy alternative sweetener. Next on our list is aspartame. Now this one's a big point of contention for a lot of people. Many people want to argue that aspartame is completely safe, but aspartame is the world's most widely used artificial sweetener. It's marketed under many names like NutraSweet, Equal, there's one called Sugar Twin, and then AminoSweet. Aspartame is a synthetic chemical, and it's composed of an amino acid, phenylalanine, and also aspartic acid with a methyl ester. When consumed, the methyl ester breaks down into methanol, which can actually be converted into formaldehyde. There's dozens of studies that have linked aspartame, which is, as I said, the world's most widely used artificial sweetener, to serious health problems, including cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, seizures, stroke, dementia, and a lot of other really negative intestinal problems. It's also been associated with even headaches and mood disorders, and even beyond headache, migraines. We have to make sure that we're avoiding aspartame, in my opinion. Look, if you think it's something that's healthy for you, I guess go ahead and use it. Personally, me and anybody I'm making recommendations to, I would say avoid it. You also want to avoid another type of sweetener, which is very popular. It's called acyl sulfame K, or acyl sulfame potassium. It's a chemical sweetener. Let's move on to a very prominent ingredient that you will find in a lot of foods, and it goes by BHT or BHA is what you'll see in the ingredient list. This is a petroleum-derived chemical, and it's used to stabilize food. Chances are, if you've read labels, you've come across it. Now, the BHT is a preservative that is found in foods such as cereals, gums, fast food, processed foods, drink mixes, shortening, snack foods, and a whole bunch of others. I mean, if you look at like chip bags and stuff, you're going to see BHT. This compound is also found in a lot of food packaging, animal feeds, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and rubber and plastic. Okay, so this is a very dangerous chemical in my opinion, but it's once again used to stabilize food and keep food from going bad, basically help food last longer on the shelf. BHA or BHA has been shown to induce allergic reactions in the skin. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies BHA as a possible human carcinogen. The European Commission on Endocrine Disruptors has also listed BHA as a Category 1 priority substance, and it basically, they found that it's going to interfere with hormone function such as estrogen. Long-term exposure to BHT in mice was shown to cause their liver to become toxic along with their kidneys and their lungs. BHT can act as a tumor promoter in certain situations. Some evidence suggests that high doses can mimic estrogen, which we mentioned, and then it will affect obviously female hormones and then male hormones as well. And it could lead to even infertility. One of the things that's very interesting, and we see this a lot, where something is considered to be dangerous for an animal, but then is considered to be completely fine for a human. And in the case of BHT, that is exactly what we find. Both the Protection of Marine Environment of Northeast Atlantic and the United Nations Environment Program list BHA as a chemical that is dangerous to marine life, but somehow it is completely safe for you. So let's move on from that one, because I want to talk about artificial colorings. This is something that you see in many, especially children's food. A lot of the bright colored, vibrant foods that kids are attracted to, that's where you find a lot of your colorings. And in 2007, there was a study published in Lancet that examined the effects of artificial colorings in children. They found that consuming artificial colorings and preservatives increase hyperactivity in kids. Now, we're talking about kids specifically because, like I said, this is where you will find most artificial colorings. And when something starts with artificial, it's a pretty good indication that you should not be eating it because it's fake. I use the term fake foods. Well, that would be one of them because it is fake. It does not belong in your food. Published in the International Journal of Occupational and Environmental Health in 2012, there was a research paper by UCLA scientists, and they found that all of the 9 currently used approved food dyes in the US have concerning health problems to various degrees. Specifically, they noted that Red 3 causes cancer in animals, and there's evidence that several other dyes are also a carcinogen. Red 40, Yellow 5, and Yellow 6 have been found to be contaminated with benzidine or even other carcinogens, and at least 4 dyes, such as Blue 1, Red 40, Yellow 5, and Yellow 6, cause hypersensitivity reactions. Look, if we wonder why kids are struggling with so many health issues, this would be one of the things that we should work on avoiding. Now, I want to talk about fluoride because this is always a point of contention too. Many people say fluoride is completely healthy and it's necessary for your teeth. Well, there's a study that was published in the Journal of JAMA Pediatrics, and basically what they found is that increased levels of fluoride exposure during pregnancy led to a decline in the IQ of the child when the child was born. Now, on the other hand, PubChem of the U.S. National Institute of Health's chemistry database considers fluoride a toxic chemical and lists numerous mental health effects that it can have on you, including things like disabilities, memory disorders, and also sleep disorders. So there's no reason to doubt that it's unhealthy for you. And one of the big arguments is that, well, we have healthier teeth if we use it. Well, there's no study that proves that countries that use fluoridated water versus those that don't have healthier teeth. That doesn't exist. The story goes is that there was funding by companies, large corporations, that were trying to get rid of this toxic chemical, and they basically came up with sham studies to prove that it was going to improve your dental health. And so that's kind of how that whole thing started. But at the end of the day, it's a neurotoxin. Harvard School of Public Health and China's Medical University performed a joint analysis in 27 studies on the effects of fluoride, and the researchers found a strong correlation between fluoride and adverse effects on brain development. Fluoride, especially when added to drinking water, nearly doubles the risk of developing hypothyroidism or an underactive thyroid. So the reason for this is because fluoride is going to bind to the iodine receptors in your thyroid, and it's going to displace iodine, causing issues for you. So completely unhealthy, and I don't think it should be approved by the FDA for one, and it definitely shouldn't be in our drinking water. Now, artificial flavorings is another thing. So we talk about artificial colorings, and we said if something starts with artificial, you should really avoid it. Well, artificial flavorings is an umbrella term that encompasses 700 different synthetic chemicals, many of which are considered to be harmful to consume. But according to the FDA's code of the Federal Regulations, Title 21, processed food manufacturers aren't even required to identify these ubiquitous compounds in the product's label. There you have it. These are the toxic ingredients that the FDA approves to be completely healthy in your food. I recommend avoiding them at all costs, and I don't think that you should be eating them. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and if you like this video, check.
Listen, this is just absolutely amazing. As I began to hear all of this information, I started questioning, okay, what is it that we know about the FDA? We rely on this information. See, we trust this information, but are they concerned about us? That's the question. Are they concerned about your health? Are they concerned about your livelihood? The United States Food and Drug Administration is supposed to protect Americans from harmful drugs, right? But most of us in our lifetime, we have seen drugs that were released and considered to be okay by the FDA, but in reality, the FDA approval does not guarantee safety. Critics say Big Pharma funds FDA reviews of new drugs, creating a conflict of interest. Big Pharma, pharmaceuticals. See, so the agency is too focused on approving drugs to appease Big Pharma, and it lacks the proper authority and funding to protect the public. It's all about your safety and your health. So I'm going to ask you the question again. How much do you know about the FDA? Often people ask me when we're talking about supplements that we provide in our company, or when I'm doing a bioscan to show people what's going on in the cells of their body, or when I'm trying to get somebody to detox, then sometimes they'll say, well, is it FDA approved? Well, guess what? FDA approval is based on evidence provided by the company, then makes that medical product that the benefits of the product outweigh the risk for more patients for a specific use. It's all about the bottom line, guys. It doesn't necessarily mean that the product is safe. And this was by Diana Zuckerman, president of the National Center for Health Research. Matter of fact, when a new drug is first approved by the FDA, it typically has only been tested in several hundred to a few thousand patients in carefully controlled clinical trials that last several weeks to several months, and that exclude a whole lot of different types of patients. Did they test you? I mean, just let's think about it. They exclude different types of patients who will end up being prescribed to the very drug that they tested, according to Michael Carone, Public Citizens Health Research Group director, told DrugWatch. As a result, only the most common types of serious adverse events will be detected prior to the FDA approval. And then for some drugs, safety concerns are only discovered after they have been on the market. Hello. Sometimes for several years. Are y'all listening to this? Do you know how many people may die within that period of time? The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has adopted several policies that could increase the likelihood of approving a potentially unsafe medication. So hopefully they're trying to make some changes. But the thing is, guys, Big Pharma is fond of criticizing the FDA for not approving drugs quick enough and depriving patients of life-saving medications, or should we say life-saving chemicals in their body. In reality, the FDA approves drugs faster than its counterparts, watch this, in Europe, Canada, and Japan. And in the 80s and 90s, the FDA began new programs that fast-tracked the approval of certain drugs. Now, this might mean some patients benefit from some new therapies, the speed at which the FDA approves drugs, but it can also have dangerous consequences. Newer and faster does not always equal better.
I find it a little strange that this bottle of Coca-Cola is sweetened with GMO high fructose corn syrup here, but the same bottle in the UK is sweetened with real cane sugar. Our beloved ketchup at home is sweetened with 2 doses of corn syrup, but the same bottle of ketchup in jolly old England is sweetened with cane sugar. And that's smart because high fructose corn syrup is sweeter than sugar. It's cheaper and it's absorbed into your bloodstream way quicker. Geez, I wonder why. 2 out of 3 of us are type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. Your favorite sports drink isn't red from natural coloring. It's with red 40 and orange thanks to yellow number 5 artificial colors derived from, wait for it, petroleum or crude oil. But this same bottle in Europe, for example, is colored with beets or beta carotene, but they give us the nasty stuff here at home.
Now think about this. Who are some of the persons that always are on television and using the energy drinks? Our athletes. So does that explain a reason why so many, even our kids, when they're playing athletic sports and stuff, and now they're finding themselves at an early age with cancer and being a diabetic? The FDA is supposedly a watchdog agency mandated to protect the public from dangerous and ineffective drugs. In fact, the FDA is ineffective and dangerous to the public. according to Alexander Bingham, clinical psychiatrist and professor at John F. Kennedy University. And the thing is, while taxpayers still provide about 1/3 of the FDA's funding, the agency receives the majority of its drug review funding from who? Big Pharma, the very industry it should be regulating. It's a little known fact to most Americans, and it raises to red flags for a number of consumer groups. Approximately 2/3 of the agency's budget for review of drug products is now funded by the pharmaceutical industry. As a result, speed of review and approval too often take precedence over protecting public health and ensuring that drugs are safe and effective. Wow. Maybe we need to take a break and just really meditate on that for a minute.
Mold, hair, poop, things you'd never allow yourself to eat. But according to the FDA, you've probably been eating them for years. The United States Food and Drug Administration has identified levels of 179 natural or unavoidable defects in food that are an acceptable risk to your health. Let's take a look at the shocking things that the FDA allows on your plate. Pee-woo? The FDA's Food Defect Levels Handbook lists insect parts as the most common defect in your food. We're talking legs, wings, thoraxes, whole heads, and brains. These insects show up in your frozen fruit, frozen broccoli, frozen Brussels sprouts. Odds are anything that grows out of the soil probably has some degree of insect parts that accidentally get taken in when the plants get harvested. In the case of items like cinnamon that get ground into a powder, the insects can get ground in there too. And while eating those insects might not sound too appetizing, remember, the FDA deems it poses no inherent hazard to your health. It could potentially give you a little protein kick too. The second most common defect in American food is mold, rot, and mildew. And if you've ever let fruits or vegetables sit too long on the table or in the fridge, then you know mold is inevitable. And it's pretty easy to notice. Blue cheese, good mold. Shiitake mushrooms, technically good mold too. But some mold is quite dangerous and can actually produce mycotoxins. Unfortunately, mold is common in something you may consume every day. Coffee beans. Don't panic though. In order to pass the inspection by the FDA, no more than 10% of beans in any given count can be moldy. And there's an important note here. While small amounts of mold in foods monitored by the FDA is okay, you should never eat a piece of bread with even a small spot of mold on it. While you may think mold exists in just that discoloration, the microscopic roots of that mold spread throughout the entire item. This is unlike berries, where you can throw away the berry with the visible mold and consume the other normal appearing ones. Oh. I got bear hair in my mouth. And speaking of bear hairs, rodent hair is the third most common defect in our food. It shows up commonly in ground spices like cinnamon, curry, oregano, and nutmeg, but also in items like macaroni and cheese, peanut butter, and popcorn. Literally, the FDA says 1 rodent hair per 100 grams of peanut butter is A-okay. I think if you have a pet like I do, we definitely consume more hairs than that. Right, Bear? High five. Probably the fanciest name on the list, Mammalia excreta is the 4th most common defect. Despite its Latin name, Mammalia excreta is not some high-end perfume or university catchphrase. It's poop, animal poop. Where there are animals, there is poop. And you've most likely been eating it. I'm talking black pepper, cocoa beans, even wheat. I understand that eating mammalian excreta is probably the most disgusting thing you can think of, but just remember that manure, or cow poop, is used to grow crops all around the world. So say it with me. We all poop, and thank you, poop. This next one isn't even so bad. Foreign matter. This is a random collection of all sorts of weird little things that can slip into the growth, harvesting, and shipping process. Things like sticks from plants, stones from the earth, burlap bag material from transport, and cigarette butts. The FDA only allows up to 1% of the weight of pickings and siftings of these foods to contain foreign matter though. So it's really nothing you should concern yourself about. How about a tasty bowl of babies? That's right, the FDA recognizes that it is financially and realistically impossible to completely eliminate insect eggs, larvae, and maggots from your food. That's why they allow up to 5 fly eggs per 500 grams of canned tomatoes, 2 3-millimeter long larvae in canned corn, or 10 insect eggs per 8 ounces of raisins. And I only thought people ate larvae on Fear Factor. We are so grateful to Mother Earth for our food, so we shouldn't be too ungrateful to learn that she's left a bit more more of herself in there than meets the eye. The FDA allows a small amount of shells, stems, sand, and pits in our food. You'll find pits in dates, olives, and prunes, shells with your nuts, stems in your cloves, and sand in your cumin. Again, all very small amounts. There's probably some good fiber in there anyway. And finally, it's time for what I think is the most disgusting defect the FDA allows in our food: parasitic cysts. It sounds gross when I even say it. A cyst is a sac that can be filled with air, liquid, pus, or parasites. A parasitic cyst is a sac that contains the larvae, or the baby version of a parasite. Consumption of undercooked meats and fish puts you at a higher risk for developing parasitic infections like worms in your GI tract. Complete prevention of parasitic cysts from fish is impractical, as they're frequently found inside the fish, and therefore some of those cysts inevitably wind up in our seafood. For example, in whitefish, the FDA allows up to 50 parasitic cysts per 100 pounds. That's why I recommend you err on the side of caution and skip that gas station sushi. Lots of people ask me if it's dangerous to hold in a sneeze. I answer that question here and more on this Responding to Comments. Check it out. As always, stay happy and healthy, and be careful with those sneezes. Watch that video.
Now, the thing about that I love about this is because I'm a certified wellness coach, right? I'm not a medical doctor. I've got 2 doctorates, one's in theology and one's in divinity. But being a certified wellness coach, I want to hear from experts. And as you saw on his shirt there, he said Doctor, General Medicine, okay? So don't shoot the messenger. Another fact that Americans should know is that the FDA does not conduct its own independent studies on drug safety and effectiveness when approving the drugs. It relies on the data and the studies provided by the manufacturers. Oh, and of course, they don't lie. Yeah, I'm kidding. This means the FDA can only base its approval on denial on the information the drug company provides. And drug companies may cherry pick the data they want the FDA to see, according to Dr. Alexander Bingham. Eli Lilly, anybody ever heard of them? Eli Lilly, been around a long time. Pharmaceutical company, conducted 20 studies to prove that the antidepressant effect of fluoxetine hydrochloride, more popularly known as, here we go, Prozac. Only 3 studies were ever submitted to the FDA for approval due to 17 outright failures. Dr. Bingham. And then there's so many things that are even hidden that we just don't know about. Every spoon can be saved. Now, think about this. Sugars in all this stuff that we give to our kids that we've been eating ourselves. So doesn't that help us to understand why diabetes is so prevalent in our community? Doesn't it help us to understand why it's happening at an earlier age and people are being diagnosed? They're saying they're pre-diabetic. You're saying you're diabetic. You got type 2, type 1, all these things that are happening. And now they're coming out with a type 3. So here's what we can do. Let's read the labels. But I know it gets confusing. You get confused. You're not alone. The FDA regulates what information to include on the labels, but there's a lot of information to sort through, and it can be tough to know what it really means. So here's some tips for making sense of the food labels. Start with the basics. The label has to include the product's name, the list of ingredients, the net quantity of contents, the name and address of the manufacturer, and any mandatory allergens. That's the basics. Know the nutrients. The label must also list the percentage of certain vital nutrients, including fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, dietary fiber, sugars, and protein. Check the calories. The label must include the number of calories per serving. This value can be helpful if you're watching your weight or you're trying to maintain a healthy diet. And pay attention to the serving size. I tell people all the time, I'm not saying that you have to become a vegan or a vegetarian or plant-based. If you choose to do that, more power to you, because that's going to take you down a great journey of taking control of your health. But if we would just pay attention to the serving size and pay attention to how many different things are in our food, that it's not. One of our doctors, Dr. Bobby Price, says it ought to be a one name. I mean, it's like I showed you last week about McDonald's fries with 19 ingredients. And all it takes to make a French fry is a potato and some grease, and then season it maybe with some salt if you want to. 3 ingredients at the most. Why do we need 19 ingredients? But when you pay attention to the serving size, even if you bought a bag of chips, okay, for all you chip lovers, and the serving size says 7 chips, and then you eat the whole bag, and the whole bag is giving you 7 times the number of calories and 7 times everything else on there. Most of us, that's why they say no one can eat just one. The label lists the number of servings per container, and this is essential because the calorie and nutrient information is for a single serving. So be sure to take a look at and check the serving size before you compare it to your portion size. And then get a handle on the percentage daily value. Know how much you're supposed to have within your body based on your makeup, based on your height and your weight. This tells you the percentage of each nutrient in one serving in terms of how much it contributes to your daily recommended intake. For example, if a food has 5% daily value for fat, one serving has 5% of the total fat you could consume daily. And when you eat the whole bag, or you drink the whole can, or you eat all the cookies in the thing, guess what? You have just increased that. And then look for low, reduced, and light. I know we always think when we see, oh, because that was non-dairy, that was low fat, that was reduced. Well, listen, these terms tell you that a food has significantly less of a specific nutrient than its regular counterpart, which can be helpful if you're trying to cut down on certain nutrients like fat or sodium. However, remember that low fat does not necessarily mean low calorie. And we should avoid foods with claims like all natural and no additives. The FDA does not regulate these claims and therefore may not mean what you think they mean. For example, all natural doesn't necessarily mean that a food has no artificial ingredients. It could just mean that it includes ingredients that occur naturally in nature. Likewise, no additives doesn't necessarily mean that food doesn't contain preservatives. It could just mean that no new additives have been added during processing. So be wary of health claims like fat-free, heart healthy. These claims are often misused and can be misleading. For example, just because a food reads fat-free doesn't mean it's calorie-free or automatically suitable for you. It could still be high in sugar or other unhealthy ingredients. And while heart healthy sounds pretty good, remember that this claim can only be made for foods that meet specific criteria set by the FDA. So not all foods advertised as heart healthy are good for your heart health. When in doubt, check with your doctor, your registered dietitian before making any significant changes to your diet based on health claims on food labels. Matter of fact, even if it says heart healthy and it's in a box or a can or a jar, or a package, you've got to question that. And then focus on ingredients quality rather than quantity. Just because an ingredient is listed first doesn't mean it's present in higher amounts than other ingredients. They're simply in order of descending predominance by weight. So instead of focusing on the order of ingredients, focus on their quality. For example, choose foods with whole grains as the first ingredient rather than refined grains. Our vegetables and fruits, you know what we should do? Follow the seasons. Go to the markets where you can. Most people, including I don't, bargain their prices at some point. Also go to foreign markets. Usually they have a wide selection of cheap exotic fruits because it's the season back there. The Chinese market, the Japanese market, the Korean markets, right? And then your meat, foreign markets. Judicious use of Costco, use and freeze, butchery schools. This is one of the best picks you can do, as they have great cuts of meat, reducing the fat on some parts by up to 20% and give low prices and last day deals. If you have a 20-degree freezer, put it in there and take it out right before you use it, and it can last for up to a year depending on the meat. The difference between fresh steaks and directly frozen steaks is pretty small if you get some regular grade meat. Again, most pre-made meals have so much salt that you'll take an extra 100 to 200 calories a day drinking more, trying to just get all that out of you. I know we're busy, we're on the run, so we want it already pre-made. We just want to stick it in the oven or stick it in don't want to stick it in the microwave, but I have to say that. And desserts, just don't buy them. Cook. Okay, I know we got to go back to cooking. Less calories, less saturated and trans fat, less salt, better flavor, better selection, less chemicals. And your guests will appreciate it. And you will know what's in it. There won't be a question. Drinks, again, foreign markets, open markets for juice, oranges in the summer, fresh fruits, plus milk, plus 1 teaspoon of sugar, plus salt, makes a great drink most of the time, and it's quickly made. Or juicing, right? Mass market fruit juices are crazy expensive, and they got too much sugar. And we showed you on one of the sessions prior to this, I think it was in part 1, about the fruit juices.
When you go to the market now, it'll say plant-based, but I read labels. When I turn it on the back and look at the label, I'm like, half of that ain't plants. How can this be plant-based? The trickery that they put in the system now, how they doubled up food and convinced us that we're eating healthy, but we're not eating healthy, and we don't understand the damage that we're doing to our bodies. So many symptoms, like we pacify them. I got a headache, headache is normal. But you don't have a Excedrin deficiency, you got a problem. Like, that's your body telling you something is wrong.
Listen, something is wrong, but we can do something about it. So in conclusion, cooking is always more rewarding than buying pre-made. Or, if you're able to have you a cook, but just know that it was cooked. If you don't have time to cook, then change your schedule in a way that allows you to cook at least 2 to 3 times a week. And for lunch, make your own. When you take your break to go eat outside, most of the time it'll be poor in vitamins, rich in calories, and it'll be time consuming. Making your own lunch has some real advantages. Controlling the quantity of food you take, costing less, taking no time. Really making 2 to 3 sandwiches takes a minute. Just add some fruit and some carrots and you're done. Giving you more time to relax during your lunch break, as you don't have to go up and down finding some place to eat, and most importantly, gives you a more balanced diet. Listen, guys, There's so much that we can do to take control of our own livelihood, our own situation. Please, please, please don't depend on what the FDA is telling you. That's all I'm saying. Do your own research. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing. It says the word of truth. This is truth, right? So let's divide this and find out for ourselves what's best for our lives, the lives of our loved ones, because we need to eradicate all these different diseases instead of being the most common, the highest disease, heart attacks is the silent killer. We can change it. I told you we taught that lesson how to end dementia and Alzheimer's. We end it by informing another generation of what you should do to keep your cognition going. Oh, no, I can't do anything about the person that's already there, but we can do something about people going and we can do it about us who are sitting here, right? And absolutely say the buck stops here.